I have folks who are really good on the ground, but they don't know what OpenAI is. And I'm getting revenue this way. I'm making like billions and billions of dollars every quarter, running my business the way it is. What is actually going to change if I bring AI in? And no founder out there today is actually tackling that use case. I'm Vikram. I'm building my own company, Crunchit.ai. We work typically with anyone who has a revenue of 10 million or more. And we are here to ensure that you can deploy AI for your data application. Whatever be the problem that you are facing, just speak to us. We usually have a very custom approach, so we can work with you to figure out. I and my co-founder, Apurv, we've spent most of our lives just spending time with enterprises, B2B products, and understanding how AI and data works. So let's look at why actually there's so much of confusion with AI. There's a lot of influx of tool solutions, what people think AI can do, confusion around, in general, is this even tangible? And there's also an overwhelming effect because every executive out there, and I'm meeting a lot of people day by day as I go and talk to decision makers at different companies here in the US, they're being bombarded with like tons and tons of questions, emails, proposals, everybody claiming that they're probably the best product out there as far as AI goes. And what I could gauge, so of course no one tells this to you, but what I can gauge is there is in general a lack of clarity in terms of what this shift looks like. Partly because most of the examples of what AI can do that started when ChatGPT came in were more about content creation, content generation. Hey, finish this draft for me. Then people started working on summarization, and the real industrial use cases that go beyond just content were never really talked about in depth. So you would always see someone wrapping up a very easy to build solution, like you just put around a wrapper around ChatGPT. You essentially are still using what OpenAI has. You've just added a new layer to it or given it maybe a little bit more flexibility. But then people would be like, hey, ChatGPT, go write a SQL query for me. Now, what is a SQL query? A SQL query is basically a sequence of code that you would ideally write to fetch the information from wherever your data is lying out. Like in SQL is just one way. You could do it in multiple languages. SQL, R, Python, there are a lot of popular examples out there. But that's not the point. I was talking about why there is so much of confusion in general in the industry. And what's happening is these folks who are seeing these surface level demonstrations of products that look like not a big deal, or it may look cool, but the decision maker is thinking, so there is like so much else that I have to do in my day-to-day. I have a team of analysts. That analyst is not just doing data extraction for me. They have this context. I talk to them every day. They know when I shout out on them that, hey, you made a bad presentation. This is not what I was looking for. And then they carry that forward the next time there is the similar ask. The entire org knows there are certain terms. Revenue, for example, could mean something else for a CRO and could mean something else for a CFO and could mean something totally different for a CEO because they look at it from in different lenses. A CFO may call revenue as realized revenue. A CRO may call revenue as booked revenue, but they're both calling it revenue. And unless Vikram, who's a part of their team, can not connect the dots and say that, okay, this is the person who's asking the question, so this is the kind of filter that I need to apply before I make a presentation, it's all a mess. So this is just one half of the problem, the context that human beings have. There's also a lot of things. How do I communicate internally in my team? Hey, there's a lot of training involved. Not everyone is going to be good at interacting with tech. I have folks who are really good on the ground. They can pick up a phone call and move mountains, but they don't know what OpenAI is. And I'm getting revenue this way. I'm making like billions and billions of dollars every quarter, running my business the way it is. What is actually going to change if I bring AI in? And no founder out there today is actually tackling that use case. In fact, I have made mistakes. I have myself been guilty of not talking about the exact right stuff. And what I mean by the exact right stuff is today there is a way in which the world is operating, and that way mostly looks something like this. You go into a room you see something has happened in the world, in your business, there's some fluctuation, you're looking at a dashboard or a graph, you see some sort of a spike or some sort of a downfall or just some interesting pattern coming up. And you notice it and in your head, if you are a really seasoned executive, you have tons of questions. That is all based on your experience. So over the years, you've seen what that could mean, and suddenly you're asking tons of questions. Is there something wrong with my inventory? Is there something wrong with my internal motion? Is this because our marketing did not work the way, or is this because we launched a new campaign and we've not accounted for it? Now, sometimes it's easier to forecast, but more than often, it's not really easy to deduce why something might be happening. And that is where these folks who are the decision makers, they'll be sitting in a room, they'll be like, hey, let's ask our data team to make graphs and plots of why this is happening. And as that happens, these teams go, they write extensive code, they play around with all the things. Basically, it's their skill set. It could be data scientists, it could be data analysts. They do it, they have done it traditionally. There are tons of tools that facilitate that. Then they come back to these presentations and you again gather in a room and look at what's really happening. And when you look at what's really happening, you'll be able to maybe deduce what the next step should be. And as an executive, you take a call on that. But also sometimes you again have newer questions because whatever the data team brought back is now planting new thoughts in your head as to why this is happening. That is the status quo. And in this whole process where the data team is doing extraction, the executive is meeting, there are tons of flows. You are getting together into a room, you are deciding where you are supposed to meet. Then the team is going and working in their own silos. Sometimes they have issues with data access. So they go to the data engineering, they go on and say, I'm not able to fetch the latest data. Then they clean that data. There is a lot of human element which no one really actually talks about involved in there. And then you make a presentation. That presentation is maybe being made by someone else. There is a product manager who's sometimes involved in the loop. You're basically making a holistic picture out of it and bringing it back in front of the executive. Now, fast forward to the startups today. People go into a room and go in and say, oh, AI is going to automate this for you. And there is no one who's talking about how that automation is actually going to look like. What does it mean when you say that AI is going to automate? It's going to automate what exactly? Is it going to automate just the code generation and people would still have to go in and use AI? So the data team is going to use AI? Are you saying that AI is going to come and talk to the executives on its own? Are you coming and saying that, hey, you don't have to talk to it, the data team doesn't have to talk to it, but someone who is not, let's say, heavy on code can interact on your behalf? Are you saying that the executive themselves are going to chat with the system? And this is just one half. If that world is actually implemented today, like wherein I go in and say that, hey, you have a team of 100 data analysts. Oh my God, you don't need it. It's okay. I don't need it, but do I need 5 analysts? Do I need 10 analysts? What are they going to be doing? Are they reviewing what AI is doing for me? Or is AI good enough? And what's the promise you have? And in here, of course, once in a while, because everyone is trying to work with the large language models or LLMs, there's not everything that they have in their own control. And there are these mistakes that keep coming. So when you're demoing it to someone, out of 10 questions, 9 would work fine, but once in a while, something would go off. And then that also plants a lot of doubts in the head of these decision makers. And then they're like, oh, we don't know. This doesn't look like it's the right solution for us. So I think most people are just in general confused about how is that cultural shift going to come in? How capable is the technology? And what are the exact set of steps that they need to do? Once these 3 things are done, there are 2 more steps. Okay, out of all the people who are doing AI, who has got the best product or the best piece of technology? But at the same time, I don't want to risk anything that I have in terms of security. I don't want to just lean in on someone who's maybe taken a shortcut. Their system may be a little more accurate, but I have a motion that is working in the old school way. And just because AI has come in doesn't mean that what was working a year back has stopped working. People would still make $1 billion in revenue if they follow the old school approach. And founders don't realize this. They go on and say, oh, you are missing out on so much of revenue. You're leaving money on the table when you're not doing it. But it's more of like also a cultural problem. It's more of also who's going to be the right champion. So today, because human beings talk to each other, in a company, you will see sometimes there is a chief digital officer. Sometimes it's a chief head of data or head of analytics. Sometimes it's just digital innovation. Sometimes it's actually very granular. It's head of consumer insights. Just the last week, I was here at the Snowflake Summit and I was talking about all of these people who are champions going onto stages and presenting what happened when they implemented AI, and then these implementations were fairly small. Like, they were not changing the world. They were trying to do it for one of the 1,000 things the company does. And they're trying to gradually build that trust and maybe step up from there, which is also where many founders are going wrong. They just go on and say that this is an end-to-end solution. You can just get rid of everything. That change is gonna have to be incremental. It can't be sudden. And a testament to this is also the established players like Snowflake. They launched something called Cortex. Cortex is still very basic. It's pretty much an AI offering. It does the things you would expect someone with a little bit of acumen to do. It's not like Snowflake can't do very complex things. It's just that they're choosing to gradually scale things up because a company like Snowflake can't afford to just launch something which is half-baked. There's all of these aspects that these executives have somewhere in their head which they feel they're missing out on. They're just desperately looking for someone to connect all these dots for themselves. And internally as well, every organization is trying to figure out, okay, who is going to be the right champion? Is it going to be a head of AI who's going to take care of all the data related products? Is it going to be someone we already have, which is, let's say, a head of growth or head of product who's just going to take in the AI charter? Does it have to be a different role? Can the individual leaders all be equipped with AI first approaches? So there is a lot of solutions that have come out, but the number of companies that have successfully adopted AI are far too small. And I think the main reason behind all of it is the factors that I just talked about. If you are a founder who's listening this and thinking about, oh my God, I never knew about all the things that Vikram is talking about. I do a bunch of things with founders. I teach them storytelling. I teach them how to go about their fundraise. I teach them how to go about their go-to-market. And in general, it's a good idea to hang out. I get energy out of speaking to founders. So if you're interested in that, just click on the link below. It will take you to a form and it will tell me who you are. Please fill the form well and we can hopefully soon chat.